The ACC struggling out of the gate in the 2024 college football season. On today's episode of the show, we're explaining the weird dilemma that Louisville is in because with the early season conference struggles, that both helps and hurts the Cardinals. More coming up on that on today's episode of Locked On Louisville.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what is going on, everyone? Welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I want to personally take this time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode of the show brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and can't be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. A weird start to the 2024 college football season for the ACC. Louisville's in a weird dilemma with the conference struggling so early. We'll break down how it helps and hurts the Cardinals coming up shortly. We'll identify who we believe the top competitors will be for the Cardinals to get back to Charlotte in the ACC Championship game. And then to conclude this pregame edition of the show, we'll identify the 5 true freshmen that could play in the season opener against Austin Peay tomorrow on Saturday. We are literally one sleep away from the Cardinals kicking off the 2024 college football season. 12 o'clock noon kickoff at Cardinal Stadium against the Austin Peay Governors. The Cardinals a heavy favorite to the tune of anywhere from 36 to 37 points as it currently stands. Weather is supposed to be a little bit of a factor, but hopefully that is out of the forecast when the Cardinals take the field at noon. Not really much of a preview of this matchup. Louisville should handle this opponent fairly easily. No disrespect to Austin Peay, but that just is sort of the reality of the situation. But we've been keeping a close eye on the rest of the conference because, let's face it, when Florida State got left out of the 14 college football playoff last season, it opened up Pandora's box. What I mean by that is the Seminoles became the first team in the college football playoff era, spanning about, 10 seasons overall. The first, or maybe 9 seasons. This is technically, I guess, the 10th season. The first team in this era from a Power 5 conference to go undefeated and miss the college football playoffs outright. Now, I understand the whole conversation about Jordan Travis going down, but still, regardless if you think that they're a top 4 team or not, the precedent that you set by leaving them out extremely hurts this conference because the perception of the conference already wasn't great with Clemson being sort of middle of the road by their standards. Florida State, even being undefeated, people viewed them as vulnerable. And then other top 25 teams that people just didn't really bat an eye on. Coming into this season, the perception of the ACC was as low as it's been since the Cardinals joined the conference back in 2014. So one thing that I wanted to see, as much as this might be confusing to Louisville fans, I wanted to see the conference show out early on because it erases some of those concerns, because as much as it doesn't help Louisville in the immediate near future, it helps in the long term. Because, I mean, let's just talk about how it helps. Anytime an ACC opponent loses, automatically helps Louisville from a getting back to Charlotte. It might not help the strength of schedule. So it's almost like it's like a backhanded compliment. I know that that's sort of a bad reference to use, but it's like, hey, look, the team you need to lose, they lost. Oh, but by the way, your victory over them earlier in the season, it loses a little bit of its luster because they're struggling. So it's got two sides. There's two sides to the coin here. It helps Louisville because of the opportunity to get back to Charlotte. And if you win your conference tournament or championship game, I should say, if you win your conference championship game, you automatically get a bye in the college football playoff. So, yes, there are incentives. Now, if a team loses to a non-conference opponent, that really doesn't – I mean, honestly, you should be cheering for every ACC team to win their non-conference games. From a large, big picture standpoint, that should be the focus. Because the perception of this conference, it hurts Louisville in the long run with every single loss that the ACC suffers. The mantra that I go with is, like, when you look at that Florida State loss, everybody, no, I don't like Florida State. Like, the Louisville fan in me is like, yeah, get out of here. Lose every game. I don't care. I'm not going to lose a bit of sleep. The only thing causing me to lose sleep right now and the bags under my eyes is the Kentucky weather going from fall-like weather to the hottest week of the year in 2 weeks. So my immune system is trying to come back down 3-1 in the 2016 final against the Golden State Warriors. Florida State's loss to Georgia Tech helps every team in the conference, but it hurts the conference because your perceived top teams losing early, especially the teams that they're not supposed to beat, is counterproductive if you're trying to build up the narrative around your conference. Like, if you're trying to prove that, hey, look, the ACC is not a bad conference. Well, when Florida State loses to Georgia Tech, and let's just look at what's happened, right? Let's look at legitimately what has happened early on. I know that it's early on, sample size is small. If you judge every team by their first game, then you're going to really overlook some teams. But let's look at early on because it does truly matter. NC State won. They're supposed to be one of the dark horses in the conference. They entered the fourth quarter yesterday losing to Western Carolina. Now, they ended up winning that game 38-21, but they struggled to do so. North Carolina, supposed to be on the outside looking in. It took a missed field goal against Minnesota to barely win 19-17. And now Max Johnson is injured, so we'll see how he's going to be. SMU, same thing. Supposed to be a dark horse in the conference. They were losing in the fourth quarter to a Nevada team that has been really bad in past years. They won 29-24. So right off the bat, three of your so-called better teams not necessarily proving it, and it obviously doesn't help that Wake Forest, they did beat North Carolina A&T 45-13, but it was a little bit closer when I looked at it. But nonetheless, what you need to happen, and I hate to say this, you need the ACC to win their non-conference games. There are some big ones this week. Like, everyone, I know this is tough to say, everyone should be a Miami fan on Saturday. Everyone that is a Louisville fan that wants to see Louisville in the best position to succeed needs to be cheering for Miami to beat Florida because of the simple narratives. Every Louisville fan needs to be cheering for Clemson to beat Georgia. Are they going to? Probably not, but they need them to do so. You need Stanford to beat TCU. You need Virginia Tech to beat Vanderbilt. You see the common theme here, like you need the ACC to win their non-conference games. And I say that because when it comes down to the selection of the 12-team college football playoff coming up here in a short number of months, it will be here before you know it. Yes, the season is kicking off this Labor Day weekend. However, you know how quickly these seasons go. You blink and it's like, damn, it's the middle of November. Looking at this, if Louisville does not, let's play the hypothetical that Louisville does not win the conference championship game, but they're in the conversation. Let's say they go 10-2. Let's say they go 10-2. They don't win the conference championship game. I guess if you go 10-2, you don't even get there. So 10-2, 10-3, either one. I think that losing in the conference championship game to be 10-3 is not going to hurt that much, although it could. Let's just say 10-2. If your conference continues to struggle. Let's say Florida State loses, because I truly think they could. If they lose to Georgia Tech, shout out to Georgia Tech, by the way. They still have a tough schedule. I don't see them winning more than 9 games. So let's say Florida State has less than 10 wins. Georgia Tech has less than 10 wins. Miami, who knows what Miami's going to do. So you have Clemson, Miami, Virginia Tech, the other teams that Louisville is supposed to be competing against, right? Let's say NC State is right there as well. But the perception of the conference is still sort of in the gutter. A 10-2 Louisville team is going to be at a huge risk of getting surpassed by a 9-3, maybe even an 8-4 SEC or Big Ten team. I know people say, oh, no chance. Yes. You're looking at that same playoff committee that just left an undefeated Florida State team out of the playoff for Texas and Alabama, who both have 1 loss. The perception of this conference is not good, y'all. It's not good at all. You need to build up that narrative. You need to reverse the narrative as soon as you can. I know that every game that an ACC opponent loses, you might think, yes, that helps our team. But does it? At least not in non-conference play. So I guess it is probably smart to identify, well, who really is going to be the top competitors in the ACC to compete against Louisville? Well, we'll identify those teams coming up here shortly on the next episode of Locked On Louisville. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Factor. Look, I just tried Factor's no prep, no mess meals, and it's already helping me to meet my wellness goals that I've set thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and even Keto. With over 35 different meals and 60 different add-ons to choose from every week, you get the new varieties and flavors so things don't get overeaten. You don't get worn out. You can make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and even blackened salmon. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use the code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's the code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Before we get into the next segment, I also want to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts. For your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay's Guaranteed Fit. Your parts guaranteed fit your ride every time, or you get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fits only available to U.S. customers. Cardinal fans, thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. College football is back. It's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off tomorrow. SEC, ACC, Big Ten, Big 12. You can get it all from Locked On stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoffs? The teams that can cause chaos in their new conferences. Everything you need to know all in one place. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On College Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Moving right on along into this Friday edition of the show, the main question, I think, moving forward, that we really haven't been able to answer much because there's been so many differentiating answers, and there will continue to be full transparency on who the biggest competitors to the Louisville Cardinals are as it relates to getting back to the ACC Championship game. Louisville looking to make it back there in 2024. With Florida State's loss in conference play, I should add, in conference play, it has reiterated and emphasized that this conference is wide open. absolutely wide open. I think that there are anywhere from 6 to 8 teams that can truly compete in this conference. And you look at who those teams are, I think that you're talking about Georgia Tech, NC State, North Carolina, Clemson, Louisville, Miami, Florida State, and Virginia Tech. I think right now SMU is sort of on the outside looking in, but that's sort of just where I'm at the moment. Maybe they're able to get into the mix. Duke is sort of in that same potential discussion, although I think that they're on the outside looking in as well because they have a new head coach. It's really going to be hard to see what Duke's going to do. Manny Diaz didn't really have the greatest tenure in Miami. They do have Malik Murphy from Texas, but we'll see how it relates or how it transpires. I think that there are 3 teams that can give Louisville or that will give Louisville extreme fits in this conference. Now, Grant Mulligan, good friend of the show, soon to be once again a weekly co-host, football analyst for the stateoflouisville.com. He's joining me, I should say, tonight, 2 a.m. I know it's kind of a weird time slot, but 2 a.m. We have an hour on the ESPN 680 93.9 The Ville 24-hour kickoff preview. And we talked about who the biggest competitors in the ACC were. I had mentioned NC State. Until they can prove to me that they're better than the team that I watched on Thursday, I'm going to keep them out of this 3-team discussion. But as it relates right now, the 3 teams that I think that Louisville will have the toughest competition with to get to the ACC Championship game, number 3 is going to be the Virginia Tech Hokies. Grant is huge on Virginia Tech. I am starting to come around because I think that the quarterback play with Kyron Drones is going to be the key. He didn't have a good game against Louisville in 2023 as a freshman. I do think that he's going to be able to bounce back. Brent Pry is in his 3rd season. You got some receivers like Jaquan Felton in the mix. Also a very, very good defensive line led by Antoine Powell-Ryland. They're going to be a really, really solid team. They're just on the outside looking in of the AP Top 25. They bring back the most starters among any of the Power 5 teams. So the depth, the starters, and the continuity with that team, I think it's going to put Virginia Tech right in the discussion of who's going to be able to compete with Louisville. Now, they do have a decently tough schedule. They'll play at Miami. They'll play Georgia Tech at home, Clemson at home. But that's pretty much it. They don't play Florida State. They don't play Louisville. They don't play NC State, etc. The second team that I think is going to give Louisville fits is going to be Miami. Now, the question is whether or not Mario Cristobal can actually exceed expectations with the talent he's given, because he seems like a guy or a coach that always does less with more. Now, he's got a very talented team. There really aren't any excuses. Cameron Ward is perhaps the best quarterback in the conference. You have a really good defensive line. Reuben Bain, Tyler Barron on the edges, really solid linebacking core. You have a good running back in from Oregon State. You have, I think his name is Damian Martinez, if I'm not mistaken, at running back. I'm going to do a cross-reference here. I think it's Damian Martinez. You have Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George back at wide receiver, decent offensive line. No reason why Miami should not be in the conversation. They'll play the Cardinals on the road on October 19th. The only thing with Miami, a little bit of a tougher schedule. They have road games at Louisville, at Tech. They'll play Florida State at home. They'll play Virginia Tech at home. We'll really get to see what they're made of in that season opener against Florida on Saturday. And the number 1 team, the team that people are overlooking because they don't really utilize the portal, the Clemson Tigers. I feel like if Cade Klubnik shows that he can be at the very least serviceable, they're going to be tough because of their defense. Once again, they will have a top 10 defensive line with TJ Parker and some other guys. They'll have to replace some secondary players, some linebacker players, but they do have a very good defense. I think that Phil Maffa is one of the top 5 running backs in the conference. Wide receivers sort of up in the air. They've got some really talented guys that they're looking to take the next step, But ultimately, I think that Garrett Riley at offensive coordinator is going to be able to help against some of those personnel issues. He's going to be able to scheme up some really good opportunities for that offense, assuming that Cade Klubnik can lead that team. So Miami, Clemson, and Virginia Tech, I think, are going to be the three biggest contenders for Louisville. The pretenders, I should say. I think Florida State's going to lose about 3 games with DJU at quarterback. I think NC State, until they show me that they can be really good, we'll see what happens this upcoming weekend, next weekend against Tennessee. That will really, really be a telltale sign. I think SMU and North Carolina have a lot to prove. Same with Duke. Same with some other teams in the conference, SMU. So we'll see. Georgia Tech's the same way. I think Georgia Tech has a lot to prove. We'll see coming up. Louisville will play them coming up on September 21st. I guess we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming matchup against Austin Peay. 5 freshmen that I feel could play a good amount of snaps in the season opener against the Governors. We'll tell you who those 5 players are coming up on the next segment of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Today's title sponsor of the show is 5 Hour Energy. If you're feeling tired after lunch like me, well, you're not alone. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of us hit the wall after lunch. So you need to let a 5 Hour Energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. Because when I started using 5 Hour Energy, my energy levels completely transformed. They have 0 sugar, and they have a convenient portable size, so it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. One thing that I love is the variety in flavors. Like, my go-to is the grape, but I've just started to use the berry and the tropical burst. They also have flavors like watermelon. You have the option to build your own 12 or 24-pack on their website. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you're never running out of the delicious energy shots. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code's not good on subscription orders. You need to go to 5 Hour Energy today. Also, before we get into the final segment, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Home Field and their Can't Miss Kickoff 2024. Those that don't know, Home Field is a licensed premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis. They have a focus on creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. They are officially in agreement with the University of Louisville. You can find their gear in the team stores now. The Can't Miss Kickoff 2024. You have football boxes, coaching jackets, bomber jackets, Champs Week gear, and more. The boxes are what makes this deal great. So in the boxes, there are 3 never-before-seen items for your school that are not available anywhere else. You have the Platinum VIP boxes that have a new hat or ringer for Platinum VIPs only, a VIP koozie, and the Platinum Pass. If you use the promo code, this is only my promo code that you can use. That's CARDS24. CARDS24, right? Go to the Homefield website, homefieldapparel.com, and go see the wide selection for the University of Louisville gear there. Use my promo code CARDS24. Thanks for your attention, and I believe that Homefield can absolutely spruce up your apparel this season. And in the final segment of the show, the final off-season segment of the Locked On Louisville podcast, we're identifying 5 freshmen that I think, true freshmen, I might add, that I think can play multiple meaningful snaps in the season opener against Austin Peay. 5 incoming true freshmen. Now, this is always a tough exercise to conduct because it is the first game of the season. Louisville really utilized the transfer portal to an extent, was one of the top transfer portal classes again. And the Cardinals high school class was smaller in nature because they utilized so many scholarships for the transfer portal class. But I will say that there are tiers amongst this list. There are 2 that I believe are going to play regardless. The first one of that is Isaac Brown. Perhaps the fastest player on the team, the running back from South Florida, got comparisons from Jeff Brom to Jawar Jordan Now, with this game seemingly going to be a blowout, you're going to see Maurice Turner, you're going to see Don Chaney Jr. in action, possibly Kewan Brown as well. But I think that this is a great opportunity to utilize Isaac Brown. Whether it is the gadget plays that Colin Lacey was going to fulfill, I think you're going to get him the ball out in space, and you're going to be able to get him the ball, especially in the second half. I think that Isaac Brown is probably the top candidate to get meaningful snaps on Saturday. The other one is JoJo Stone. Colin Lacey is out for an extended period of time. Jimmy Callaway's status is up in the air as of Friday afternoon. Amari Huggins-Bruce the same way. So you're looking for somebody to fill the slot. You have Jaden Thompson that might be able to do so. You have Blue Hicks, Chris Hughes, Jaleel McClain. But true freshman JoJo Stone has looked really good this offseason. The work ethic has been put on full display. It's just a matter of making the most out of the opportunity if he gets that opportunity. I think he's definitely going to get a good amount of snaps, could end up getting the most amount of snaps of any true freshman on Saturday afternoon. The other three, it's sort of projection-based, kind of projecting the spots to where Louisville might look to go to younger players that don't have much experience just to get them experience in this game. I think that one of those guys is Jathan Hatch in the secondary at safety. You know, MJ Griffin, Devin Neal, D'Angelo Hutchison, Day McCullough, Blake Ruffin, Tamarian McDonald. You've got a really, really good safety position. Hatch has looked really solid in off-season workouts, and at the end of the game, I could definitely see him getting some run in garbage time minutes because you don't have as many safeties as you do other guys at certain positions like defensive line, maybe even cornerback. So I think that definitely Jathan Hatch could fit that role. Xavier Porter, really good defensive lineman from the Tampa area. I'm interested to see how much he's going to play because there are a lot of guys that could end up, playing more because they've just been waiting their time. Micah Carter, Sadiq Clements, Wu Spencer come to mind, some local guys. We'll see how much Thor Griffith is going to play. He's really not practiced much due to injury. And then how much is Des Tell, Jared Dawson, Jordan Girard going to play if this game becomes a blowout? So two guys at that position will play. So I think Xavier Porter could be a player that you look at to get some extended run in this matchup against the Governors because of wanting to keep guys fresh, 6'2", 270 from Tampa. And then the last one is Trent Carter. I think that this is more so from a positional numbers game. At linebacker, obviously, you've got some key players, TJ Capers. We'll see if he factors into the mix at inside linebacker. Trent Carter is the player that I was mentioning because you have TJ Quinn, you have Geronte Davis, you have sorry. Gosh, my throat is getting a little parched as we get to the end of this show. Dan Foster Jr., TJ Quinn, Antonio Watts, Geronte Davis, Daquan Clark, maybe even TJ Capers. I think that Trent Carter, 6'3" linebacker from Jacksonville, has looked pretty solid in the offseason. I could definitely see him getting some run as well. So all eyes turning to Cardinals football starting back up in less than 24 hours. We'll break it down for you on the post-game recap that will air on Sunday as we conclude that matchup and get ready for Jacksonville State next week. This is going to wrap up the final off-season episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. We'll see you right back here